Hi, I'm Stephanie Strange. Want to hear something scary?
Hello there, I hope you're excited as I am now that we have new videos on the first Tuesday of every month. And we're hoping that we can bring back the weekly videos very, very soon. In addition, I'll be doing email submissions from you guys and making videos out of them on the second week of the month. And I'll be doing monthly live streams again on the last week of every month. When there's not a new video, we'll be doing compilations from our incredible archive of the scariest stories from around the world, so we hope you enjoy.
When Mitchell was about 12 years old, his mom Susan was set up on a blind date with a woman named Elizabeth. It went pretty well, so Susan introduced her to Mitchell. From the beginning, Mitchell had a weird feeling about her. It felt like she didn't quite know how to interact with children, so she was always a bit distant and cold. Meanwhile, she was showering Susan with gifts and acting pretty clingy. A week after Susan and Elizabeth started dating, the three of them went to Susan's friend's wedding. Elizabeth wore a baggy tie-dye shirt and basketball shorts, a very odd choice for a formal occasion. When they got there, Mitchell's eyes grew at the sight of all the food. His eyes landed on the platters of shrimp, but Susan reeled him back into reality. Don't eat any of the seafood. It was cooked with peanut oil. Mitchell sighed in disappointment. He loved shrimp, but was allergic to peanuts. Later in the evening, Elizabeth approached Mitchell at the table, holding a plate of shrimp and smiling widely.
Look, a guest brought some seafood cooked without peanut oil. Isn't that lucky? Your mom asked me to bring this to you. Enjoy.
She placed the plate in front of Mitchell and walked away. Mitchell looked around to see if he could spot his mom and get her nod of approval, but he couldn't see her. Being a young kid, he didn't overthink it and ate a shrimp. It was just as delicious as he had hoped it would be. So he ate another, and another, until his throat swelled up and couldn't swallow anymore. Susan spotted Mitchell across the room, covered in hives and struggling to breathe, and she quickly called an ambulance. Once Mitchell was okay and everything had calmed down, Susan scolded him. "I told you not to eat the seafood. Why didn't you listen to me?"
"It was Elizabeth. She said it didn't have peanut oil. She said you told her to give it to me."
Susan looked over at Elizabeth.
Oh, poor kid. He's delusional from the medication.
A week later, Susan called things off with Elizabeth. She believed Mitchell when he told her that Elizabeth had tricked him, and she couldn't stand the thought of being with someone who would intentionally cause harm to her child. Just to be safe, they changed their number so Elizabeth couldn't get a hold of them. Years had passed and they had forgotten about Elizabeth. Until this past summer, when they turned on the news.
Her job was to care for the elderly and comfort the ill, but former nurse Elizabeth Wetlaufer is now one of Canada's worst serial killers.
The woman they called Beth was charged today with 8 counts of first-degree murder.
4 counts of attempted murder and 2 counts of aggravated assault.
She had killed their loved ones.
All by way of insulin overdoses.
In a chilling confession to police, Wetlaufer claimed they were annoying.
Wetlaufer was found guilty of professional misconduct.
Make sure that this woman gets the justice she deserves because she had no right to do what she did.
I think she's sick. Literally sick.
Oh my God.
Alwyn was eager for his date tonight, even though he now hated this time of year, Halloween. The Grim Gouger had been sent to jail thanks to his dad and the rest of the FBI. Alwyn reminded himself he no longer had to stay up all night with his mom, worried if the Gouger would get his father before he was caught. Alwyn's family thought they could put this all behind them, but now it was Halloween. And the mask of the Grim Gouger was suddenly everywhere. From t-shirts to stickers, it seemed the infamous killer had become a horror icon. His new girlfriend, Sierra, agreed to have a Halloween date at her house, watching scary movies. And he was thankful to be pulled out of his dreadful reverie when she opened the door with a candy bowl in hand. Sierra smiled at him, costumed in a jumpsuit one might wear to hunt ghosts in. "Hey, you! You found the new apartment okay?" Suddenly, she frowned. "Oh, did you bring a friend?" Alwyn turned to look behind him, and his heart skipped a beat. Behind him stood the Grim Gouger. Alwyn's breath whistled through his suddenly tight throat. His body was shaking. But wait, something was off. "Trick or treat," the Grim Gouger said in a high and enthusiastic voice. It was a kid wearing a store-bought Grim Gouger mask. Sierra quickly ushered Alwyn inside and down the hall away from them. Turning back to her door with her candy bowl, Sierra gave the kid candy and said goodbye. Embarrassed and apologetic, Alwyn turned back to her when she came back inside and offered a blood-red rose. Sierra took it as she led him toward the living room. "The Grim Gouger is a sore subject," he explained, telling her the full story about his father. Sierra touched his shoulder as they sat on the couch. "I understand. I lost someone last year during the whole Grim Gouger thing. They were my whole world." Putting his arm around Sierra, Alwyn expressed his condolences while also assuring her of their safety. Hers, his, and his mother's, since the Grim Gouger had been captured by his dad and was now definitely locked securely behind bars. Sierra looked distant. "I'm so glad you offered to come over tonight for Halloween. It would have been really tough for me if you hadn't. And thank you for keeping our relationship on the DL. I just needed time, but I can trust you since we feel the same way about family." She smiled, and Alwyn melted as she leaned in close. Then the microwave went off, and Sierra jumped off the couch. "Popcorn's ready. Let's start with your favorite scary movie." "I'll be right back." She disappeared, laughing into the kitchen. Nodding, he began to scroll down some selections on the TV when the doorbell rang. "Can you get the door?" Sierra yelled from the other room. The doorbell rang again and again. Whoever they were insistent. As he turned the front door knob, candy bowl at the ready, Alwyn waited to hear the familiar trick or treat. But there was nothing. When he opened the door, nobody was there. However, looking down, he found a Grim Gouger mask placed on the doormat. No one else was in the hallway. He felt the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. "That last kid just dropped their mask," he thought to himself. "The Gouger is in prison. Everything is fine." "Everything okay?" Sierra asked as she headed toward him, popcorn in hand. As he looked back at her, his blood went cold. Behind her, in the darkened part of her hallway, stood the Grim Gouger. Alwyn shouted, running towards her, but before he could get to Sierra, the Gouger shoved her out of the way and smashed Alwyn in the face, knocking him out cold. When Alwyn came to, he was tied up. Struggling against the restraints, his vision landed on Sierra, who lay next to him with her eyes closed. "No! Sierra!" he screamed. She suddenly opened her eyes. Looking into his, Alwyn heard the doorbell ring again. Sierra then held her phone up, pushed an app on her phone, and the doorbell rang in response to the app again. She sat up next to him. Raising her other hand from behind her back, she brought her own Gouger mask to her face with a smile. "Family means everything, Alwyn. You must understand why we are doing this. Your father took our father from us last year." The man from earlier wearing the Grim Gouger mask entered the room. He was wearing a jumpsuit, similar to Sierra's. "My sister is right," he said as he held a knife over Alwyn. "Blood is most important. Eye for an eye." Sierra scooted in close and revealed a knife that matched her brother's. "Now, we're going to take you from your father," she said as the new two Grim Gougers overtook Alwyn and stabbed out his eyes. Later, when Alwyn's body was found by his father, the walls of the HomeAway B&B rental apartment were covered in bloody words that spelled out, "If you don't see it, then it isn't happening." The Grim Gouger had returned.
Tanya sat alone at the bar, nervously scrolling through her phone. Whenever someone walked in, she'd glance at the door and then back down at her phone. She had been sitting there for at least 15 minutes, so the bartender decided to talk to her. "Waiting for someone?" he said. His name tag read, Elliot. Yeah." Tanya was preoccupied with her phone. Elliot pressed on. "I hate when people are late. So disrespectful." Tanya looked up. "I know, right? He's probably standing me up. I don't know. Is that common on these things?" She gestured toward the dating app on her screen. "Oh, you're on Love Tap? You haven't heard the bad things people are saying about it?" Elliot continued. No. What are people saying?" They ended up conversing over the next half hour. Elliot made her a couple of drinks, and she almost completely forgot about her date. It had been 45 minutes before Tanya realized that he never showed up. She decided to call it a night and asked for her bill, but Elliot said he'd taken care of it. "It's the least I could do. I promise, we're not all bad." Tanya thanked him and walked out of the bar. But before she got to her car, she felt a hand on her shoulder. She turned around. It was Elliot. He told her that he had a fun time talking with her and was wondering if he could take her out sometime. Tanya said she was flattered, but it probably wasn't a good idea, and turned back towards her car. "I don't understand. Did I do something wrong?" Elliot replied. "No, just, I'm not really looking to date anyone right now. You were literally waiting for a date in there. Come on, just one drink." I have to go." Tanya continued to her car. She could feel Elliot's eyes on her as she drove away. After only a few minutes of being on the road, a car behind her began flashing their high beams. It pulled up super close to her bumper and continued flashing. Tanya assumed they wanted to pass her, so she gestured out the window. The car was now honking wildly. What the hell did they want? Tanya thought. The car finally pulled up beside her. It was Elliot. "Oh God, oh God, oh God, oh God, oh God," Tanya thought to herself. "Just ignore him. Just keep your eyes straight ahead." She heard Elliot yelling at her to pull over. He can't be serious, Tanya thought. In that moment, Tanya regretted not giving him her number, even as a courtesy. She didn't actually have to answer if he texted. In the corner of her eye, she saw Elliot hold his arm out towards her. She turned her head to see him pointing a gun at her car. She screamed and slammed on the brakes, pulling over onto the shoulder. Elliot pulled over in front of her. Tanya got out of the car with her hands up as Elliot ran towards her. She fell to her knees and began to cry. "What do you want from me? Get out of the car!" Elliot continued to yell. "I am out of the car, you maniac! Not you! Him!" Elliot passed Tanya and continued pointing the gun towards the back of the car. Confused, Tanya turned around. From the back seat arose a man. The man she was supposed to meet at the bar. Elliot held his gun on the man while Tanya called the police. When she told the officers what had happened, they weren't surprised. Apparently, Love Tap was attracting a lot of creeps. The security measures on the app were so low that it was extremely easy to gather women's personal information. As a result, there had been multiple instances of men waiting for women in their cars and even their homes. After the officers arrested the man, Tanya found a rope in her back seat. She was so grateful to have not been this man's next victim. "Wow, I really dodged a bullet there, huh?" Tanya said to Elliot. "Thanks again for saving my life. Seriously, I wouldn't suppose you'd be interested in grabbing a drink with me now, would you?" Elliot asked. They both chuckled. "No, Elliot, honestly, I'm just not interested. I hope you understand." "All right. Well, I hope I see you around sometime soon." And after thanking him again, Tanya headed home. Elliot took out his phone and snapped a photo of Tanya's car and opened up Love Tap. Very, very soon.
Thanks so much for listening. Like and share if this video gave you the chills. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the bell for notifications. See you next time.